In this video, you will learn how to handle user input on your app views. You're watching one of the SwiftUI tutorial series videos. Aside from this video, there are other SwiftUI videos on this channel, which I highly recommend you watch later. If you have not subscribed yet, click the subscribe button below and click the bell icon to enable notifications and receive updates when a new video is uploaded to this channel. In the building lists and navigation video, we built the detail view and the list view of the landmarks app. Then we added a navigation from the list of landmarks to the detail view. The landmarks app is an app for discovering places that you like, such as parks and other interesting places. In the app, a user can flag their favorite places and filter the list to show just their favorites. To create this feature, we will start by adding a switch to the list so users can focus on just their favorites. And then we will add a star-shaped button that the user taps to flag a landmark as a favorite. In this video, you will learn how to add a favorite icon on each list row, how to respond to user interaction such as a tap on a row, how to display filtered data, how to add a toggle switch, and how to use observable objects for reactive user interfaces. Before we get started, make sure to download the starter project and follow along with this tutorial. We begin by enhancing the list to show users their favorites at a glance, then add a star to each landmark row that shows a favorite landmark. Open the starting point Xcode project and then select landmark row.swift in the project navigator. After the spacer, add a star image inside an if statement to test whether the current landmark is a favorite. In SwiftUI blocks, you use if statements to conditionally include views. Because system images are vector-based, you can change their color with the foreground color modifier. The star is present whenever a landmark's isFavorite property is true. You'll see how to modify that property later in this tutorial. We can customize the list view so that it shows all of the landmarks or just the user's favorites. To do this, we will need to add a bit of state to the landmark list type. State is a value or a set of values that can change over time and that affect a view's behavior, content, or layout. You use a property with the addState attribute to add state to a view. Select landmark list.swift in the project navigator. Add a addState property called showFavorites_only to landmark list with its initial value set to false. Refresh the canvas by clicking the Resume button. When you make changes to your view structure, like adding or modifying a property, you need to manually refresh the canvas. Filter the list of landmarks by checking the Show Favorites Only property and each landmark that is favorite value. To give the user control over the list filter, we need to add a control that can alter the value of Show Favorites Only. We do this by passing a binding to a toggle control. A binding acts as a reference to a mutable state. When a user taps the toggle from off to on and off again, the control uses the binding to update the view state accordingly. Create a nested for each group to transform the landmarks into rows. To combine static and dynamic views in a list, or to combine two or more different groups of dynamic views, use the for each type instead of passing your collection of data to list. Add a toggle view as the first child of the list view, passing a binding to the Show Favorites Only. We use the $sign prefix to access a binding to a state variable or one of its properties. Use the live preview and try out this new functionality by tapping the toggle. To prepare for the user to control which particular landmarks are favorites, we will first store the landmark data in an observable object. An observable object is a custom object for your data that can be bound to a view from storage in SwiftUI's environment. SwiftUI watches for any changes to observable objects that could affect a view and displays the correct version of the view after a change. Create a new Swift file named userdata.swift. Declare a new model type that conforms to the observable object protocol from the combined framework. SwiftUI subscribes to the observable object and updates any views that need refreshing when the data changes. Add stored properties for show favorites only and landmarks, along with their initial values. An observable object needs to publish any changes to its data so that its subscribers can pick up the change. Add the @publish attribute to each property in the model. Now that you have created the user data object, you need to update your views to adopt it as the data store for your app. In landmark list.swift, replace the show favorites only declaration with an @environment object property and add an environment object modifier to the preview. This user data property gets its value automatically as long as the environment object modifier has been applied to a parent. Replace the uses of show favorites only by accessing the same property on user data. Just like on @state properties, you can access a binding to a member of the user data object by using the $sign prefix. Use user data.landmarks as the data when creating the for each instance. In scene_delegate.swift, add the environment object modifier to the landmark list. If you build and run landmarks in the simulator or on device, rather than using the preview, this update ensures that landmark list has a user data object in the environment. Update the landmark detail view to work with the user data object in the environment. You'll use landmark index when accessing or updating the landmark's favorite status so that you're always accessing the correct version of the data. Switch back to landmark list.swift and turn on the live preview to verify that everything is working as it should be. The Landmarks app can now switch between a filtered and an unfiltered view of the landmarks, but the list of favorite landmarks is still hard-coded. To allow the user to add and remove favorites, we need to add a favorite button to the landmark detail view. In landmark detail.swift, embed the landmark's name in an H tag. Create a new button next to the landmark's name. Use an if-else conditional statement to provide different images that indicate whether the landmark is a favorite. In the button's action closure, the code uses landmark index with a user data object to update the landmark in place. Switch back to landmark list.swift and turn on the live preview. As you navigate from the list to the detail and tap the button, those changes persist when you return to the list because both views are accessing the same model object in the environment. The two views maintain consistency. Now that we have added the favorites and filter feature, users can mark the landscapes they like and filter their favorites by tapping the filter button. On this video, I showed you how to add a favorite icon on each list row view, how to respond to user interaction such as a tap on a row, how to add a toggle switch and display the filtered data, and how to use observable objects for reactive user interfaces. On the next video, I will show you how you can draw badges programmatically. In the app, users will receive a badge if they visit a landmark. We will combine paths and shapes and then overlay it with another shape that represents the landmark location. To get a notification about new videos, click the subscribe button below and then the bell icon to receive notifications from this channel.